Good morning and welcome to the It's All Greek to Me blog tour. I'm Dr. Paul Kiritsis and this is blog number 13. Today I'll be continuing the discussion surrounding Platonic cosmology that was initiated in blog number 12. Anybody who has taken up a university or college class in philosophy or classics knows about the Platonic forms. First patterns or blueprints that exist in an eternal, undefiled, and wholly integrated zone, and project archetypal emanations in the temporal, ever-fluctuating world of nature. But how did the genius of Plato conceptualize the idealistic marker of reality? As history will show, spontaneous insights gained through mysticism are rarely the order of the day. Following in the footsteps of Mother Nature and her tools of natural selection, venturesome humans have always tended towards mastering the art of imitation, which is, dare I say, far easier to emulate than the art of originality and creativity. When it comes to Platonic cosmology, it's far more likely that Plato would have been following century-old premises thrown about and brooded on by the Ionian pre-Socratic philosophers in their bid to discover the true nature of the base substance of which the entire cosmos is hewn. Thus, to create the binocular vision of reality that he has come to be associated with today, Plato borrowed Anaximenes' vision of the first cause as an ethereal fire or ether of some kind and married it with Pythagorean mystical insights that define the first cause in strictly qualitative and geometrical terms. If the uncreated was an undifferentiated spherical speck of light or fire which mysteriously took on a plethora of forms when it differentiated into other substances and qualities, and if everything that has been created was interconnected and infused with the same life force which emanated from the primeval time origin, then the obvious deduction would be to conceive reality as being twofold. Somewhere out there existed a world of ideal forms or being which stood apart from and underpinned the world of becoming, expressed by the sphere of created nature. In addition, it appears that a fundamental principle, the law of time, separated the two worlds. Time set forth the wheel of change, and change here can be understood to mean an adherence to the cycles of birth, growth, and death, which powered everything in nature with a potentiality and desire to strive for perfection, to seek its ultimate union. If we could somehow build a time-traveling device and teleport ourselves back 24 centuries to a beautiful Athenian Temenos on which Plato conferred upon his disciples his philosophical dialogues relating to the nature of reality, we would no doubt materialize beside the genius as he engaged his audience with this, the most famous of his doctrines. To illustrate his idealistic conception, he might allude to the blue and cream bird of paradise flower which resembles the feathered yellow crest of the cockatoo and sprouts from the branches of the bird of paradise plant in spring. He would dutifully inform that the blue and cream flowers of this tropical plant are merely imperfect copies of a supernal equivalent that exists in the eternal realm of being. Millions of bird of paradise flowers sprout from the stems of their hosts before proceeding to maturity. After a small time, they begin to wither and die. The process repeats itself over and over and over again, like the waning and waxing of the moon and the light cycles of Venus. In the world of being, on the other hand, this same flower remains a fully mature blue and white petaled flower, defined by perfect symmetry of form and free of any temporal handicap for all eternity. All earthly versions of the flower yearn to replicate their Platonic equivalent in the realm of being, but few, if any, actually succeed. For Plato, the science of multiplication, which resulted in the majestic cosmos with its celestial inhabitants, the stars and planets, as well as its earthly counterparts, the forests, mountains, rivers, seas, deserts, and caves, was a gesture that illuminated the benevolence of God. Plato believed that God existed above and beyond, or separate to the world of ideas and forms, a seed of fire that was wholly noble, benevolent, and undefiled because it had remained undifferentiated. When a being, or any being for that matter, loves itself, it seeks expression in the cosmos. It yearns to generate more of its own essence, to multiply its essence. If we follow this train of thought, then it would make sense to believe that divine cogitation is an act of self-love. Closely aligned to the Platonic ideology is the Egyptian creation myth of Heliopolis, which inverts the esoteric concept into a literal one and lays it bare for all of us to see. In the myth, the deity Atum emerges from the primordial soup and brings forth the entire cosmos from within his own being, by masturbating. Being a miniature replica of the macrocosm, we ourselves imitate this act of self-love every time we think, pray, or ponder something. Mental activity spurs emotion and generates actions, and actions themselves are the shards of a mirror, or form shards of a mirror that, when combined, accurately reflect the nature of the being enacting them. The Platonic and Pythagorean conception of creation definitely rings true for me. Constructing an inner mental picture and then brooding on it with the unconscious will can, in a great many instances, cause the emerging thought, form, or desire to take on a life of its own. These self-generated vortices of psychic energy are composed of noetic matter, the prima materia, or base substance of the information universe. To our untutored mindsets, this concept may seem bizarre and eerie, but in Tibet, where the invocation of thought forms are common, apparitions of this sort are called tulpas. Among many other things, their creation and destruction was a primary concern for the medieval alchemists, who called them homunculi. Alternatively, thought forms that have acquired autonomy through the collective brooding of persons united by common aims, agendas or purposes, are called egregores. All such thought desires, being elementally psychic in nature, are either positively charged or negatively charged. The former includes sentiments like love, lust, and platonic affinity, whilst the latter encompasses the qualities of envy, jealousy, and hatred. Once these entities separate from their parent consciousness, they seek out and affect the psyche of their subject, but sooner or later return to their primeval time origin, that being the individual who created them. The first person to challenge Plato on his theory of forms was his student, Aristotle. Whilst agreeing with the binocular division of reality into a realm of being and a realm of becoming, he rejected his teacher's conviction that the divine mind or intellect encompassed an autonomous existence outside of the Platonic forms, ideas, and archetypes. For Aristotle, God wasn't separate from the aforementioned qualities. He was them. Divine contemplation and self-love were one and the same, an activity which set the rotation of the heavenly spheres into motion and made the world go round. In fact, everything that transpired in the universe was merely a byproduct of God's mental activity. Thus, in a way, Aristotle was intimating that despite being omniscient and all-knowing, God himself stood powerless in enacting change in the world of becoming, entirely of his own volition, seeing that he could not distance himself nor transcend the Platonic form to which all his mental activity was confined. The same was true for human beings, who were merely miniature replicas of the greater cosmos. Further still, the indifference and cold-heartedness with which God probably regarded his own creation was ominous, for it wasn't long before he withdrew his attention from it, leaving everything to the contingencies of matter acting upon matter. This completely destroyed Plato's metaphysical idea that humans could manipulate the anima mundi, the world soul, by tampering with the occult virtues or signatures of inert and inanimate bodies in the mineral, plant, and animal kingdoms, signatures which united the intrinsic parts of nature with the creative daemons and the eternal fire, the divine mind itself. The schism initiated by Aristotle had the effect of permanently differentiating two streams of thought, Aristotelian materialism and Platonic idealism. Idealism, in particular, continued to emphasize the path of knowing through mystical insight, which gelled well with fundamental streams of religion, and hence the tradition continued to survive into medieval times. Strictly speaking, the religious and mystical philosophy known as Neoplatonism was merely a system of orthodox Platonism. The movement solidified under Plotinus, a Greek-Egyptian from the Deltaic Lycopolis in Lower Egypt, after 11 years of critical inquiry, as well as a failed expedition to Persia to acquaint himself with Buddhist and Zoroastrian wisdom. Plotinus settled in Sicily and penned the 54 treatises of the Ennead, the core text of Neoplatonic metaphysical writings that greatly influenced theological doctrine in late antiquity. His closest disciple and biographer, the Lycian-born Porphyry, and the pagan philosopher Proclus of Constantinople, both consolidated and amplified his system of Neoplatonic ideas.